Have you ever wondered how engineers guarantee a perfectly safe wheelchair ramp without having to measure every single inch of a building? They don't. By the end of this explainer, you're going to completely understand the four remaining trigonometric functions. We'll lock down their formulas, map them onto the unit circle, and show you exactly how to apply them to real-world examples, just like that ramp. Let's get right into it. So think about it. To build that perfectly safe wheelchair ramp, engineers don't actually need the exact dimensions of the staircase or the physical property. All they need is one specific mathematical ratio, a ratio actually required by the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. And that golden ratio? It's 1 to 12. Basically, for every one single inch of rise, the ramp must have exactly 12 inches of run. This brilliantly illustrates our very first new trigonometric function, tangent. Because tangent represents a ratio, it lets us specify safe proportions completely independently of the ramp's exact physical dimensions. If you know the ratio, well, you know the shape. Now, what is tangent mathematically speaking? Tangent, which we abbreviate as tan, is quite simply the ratio of the y value to the x value on the unit circle. And since we already know that the y value represents sine and the x value represents cosine, we can define tangent as just sine divided by cosine. It's the first big missing piece to complete our whole trigonometry puzzle. Okay, so now that we've got tangent down, let's look at the final three functions, secant, cosecant, and cotangent. I know, they sound kind of complicated, but they are literally just the reciprocals of the functions we already know. Think of it like a real-life staircase. If sine, cosine, and tangent are like you standing at the bottom looking up, these three new functions, that's just you standing at the top looking down. It's the exact same staircase, you're just flipping the fraction. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking right now, because it's a super common point of confusion for students. You're probably saying, wait, why is cosecant the reciprocal of sine, but secant is the reciprocal of cosine? Shouldn't the cos logically go together? I mean, it totally feels like a naming mistake, right? Well, let's clear that up by looking at the actual math. Sine is our y value, right? So its reciprocal, cosecant, is simply 1 over y. Cosine is our x value, making its reciprocal secant 1 over x. This naming convention actually traces back centuries to the geometry of circles and intersecting lines, not just matching prefixes. So a huge rule to remember here. Sine pairs with cosecant and cosine pairs with secant. Don't let the code trick you. Now take a look at this. What's really cool here is how this acts like a built-in cheat code. We're looking at the standard first quadrant angles, 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90 degrees. Notice that if you just memorize the basic sine and cosine values, you automatically know the other four. For instance, at 30 degrees, sine is 1/2. Flip that fraction, and boom, your cosecant is 2. Knowing your basic sine and cosine coordinates literally gives you the master key to instantly calculate everything else. But hey, what happens when we leave the safety of that first quadrant? We need a way to know if our function's output is going to be positive or negative. I want you to burn this phrase into your memory, a smart trig class. It's a classic mnemonic. Starting in quadrant 1 and moving counterclockwise, A stands for all functions are positive. Smart means only sine and its reciprocal are positive in quadrant 2. Trig means only tangent and cotangent are positive in quadrant 3. And class means only cosine and secant are positive in quadrant 4. Okay, time for a rapid-fire retention check to make sure you're still with me. Is secant positive or negative in quadrant 3? Think about our phrase, smart, trig. It's negative. In quadrant 3, our word is trig, which means only tangent and its reciprocal cotangent are positive. Everything else is negative, and honestly, this is a very common mistake students make. They mix up those signs in the third and fourth quadrants all the time. So always fall back on all smart trig class. Let's formalize this into a real procedure. If you get an angle anywhere on the unit circle, here is your foolproof 3-step whiteboard plan. Step 1, measure your reference angle back to the horizontal x-axis. Step 2, evaluate the function exactly like it's a basic first quadrant angle using those cheat codes we just talked about. And step 3, check the original quadrant of your angle and apply a smart trig class to slap the correct positive or negative sign right on your answer. That simple 3-step loop will solve literally any quadrant problem. Now, mathematically speaking, we divide functions into two symmetrical categories, even and odd. An even function just absorbs a negative input, meaning f of negative x is exactly the same as f of x. Think of a parabola. An odd function, on the other hand, pulls that negative sign right out to the front. So f of negative x becomes negative f of x. So how do our 6 trig functions categorize? And this really brilliantly illustrates the relationships we've been building today. Cosine is an even function, which naturally means its reciprocal, secant, is also even. They essentially just eat the negative sign. The other 4, sine, tangent, and their reciprocals, cosecant and cotangent, are odd functions. That means if you plug a negative angle into them, a negative sign just pops out right at the front. Let's put that to the test immediately. If the secant of angle t is 2, what is the secant of negative t? Take a quick second to recall what group secant falls into. Is it even or is it odd? The answer is exactly 2, because secant is an even function. That negative input doesn't change the output at all. It stays exactly the same. Now, if I had asked you about cosecant instead, well, that odd function would have flipped the answer to negative 2. Okay, moving right along, let's see how this all builds into our fundamental identities. You probably already know the classic Pythagorean identity, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Well, by simply dividing that entire equation by cosine squared, we get a brilliant mathematical shortcut. 1 plus tangent squared equals secant squared. Or divide the original by sine squared instead, and you get cotangent squared plus 1 equals cosecant squared. These aren't just random formulas to memorize. They are direct mathematical descendants of the sine and cosine relationships. They allow you to instantly convert between functions. Before we wrap up, we absolutely have to talk about periodicity. Trig functions are basically nature's copy-paste mechanism. They repeat their values in regular intervals. Cosine, sine, and their reciprocals take a full 360-degree trip around the unit circle to repeat, giving them a period of 2 pi. But tangent and cotangent are actually unique. They repeat their values after just half a circle, meaning their period is only exactly pi. All right, let's quickly summarize the key takeaways we promised at the start. 1. Tangent, secant, cosecant, and cotangent are simply ratios and reciprocals built entirely from sine and cosine. 2. You're always going to rely on a smart trig class to quickly determine positive or negative signs across the different quadrants. And 3, by combining reference angles with our even and odd rules, plus those Pythagorean identities, you now have the tools to evaluate literally any angle, whether it's inside or outside the first quadrant. And this brings us right back full circle to a brilliant thought to wrap things up. Trigonometric functions allow us to specify the shapes and proportions of objects independent of exact dimensions. The next time you see an ADA wheelchair ramp, you'll know that its precise 1 to 12 safety standard exists purely because of the tangent function. The math we just learned isn't just sitting on a whiteboard, it's physically structuring the world around us. So how do we use these identities to solve even more complex structural equations? Well, you'll just have to join me in the next explainer to see those identities in action.